And what they found was that wealth, fame, professional success did not correlate with happiness, with health, with longevity. What did correlate was relationships. And the opposite of that, loneliness, this study showed over and over, loneliness kills. Welcome, CampFI. So today I'm talking about later life FI. And you might be wondering, I've heard of FI, I've heard of lean FI, fat FI, coast FI, barista FI. What's later life FI? So what I'm talking about is the part of your life in your 70s, your 80s, your 90s, part of life that not just the financial independence community, but a lot of our culture doesn't want to think about. But in the FI community, we've definitely focused on reaching FI, like that moment when you realize it's possible, very exciting. And then maybe you're on the road to FI. And then some of you may have reached FI, and we even talked about what's beyond FI. But this period of life has not entered into the conversation yet. And one thing that we are uniquely good at in the financial independence community is planning and preparing. And for some reason, it came to me that this is a lot like romantic comedies. Think of one. Almost the whole movie is about the girl and the guy, the girl and the girl, the guy and the guy getting together, and then there's dishonesty and they fly apart and then they come together. And the climax of the movie is the marriage and then the credits roll. So FI has been sort of like that. We find out about FI, we struggle to get there, we reach it, and the credits roll. But that isn't really how life works. If any of you have been in long-term relationships, yes, getting together can be very exciting, painful, all of the above, but it's definitely not the end of the story. And there's a whole world beyond that. So that's what we're talking about today. And with life expectancies, what they are, you might have 10, 25, or even more years beyond what I call the go-go years of, say, 60 to 75. And are you planning for them? Are you thinking about them? And my contention is you can make those years amazing, maybe even the best years of your life, if you plan and prepare. So we're going to learn how to calculate your financial needs for this time of life, whether you're going to self-fund, use long-term care, hybrid, or some mixture. But what's important is understanding what to do and then how to do it. So a little about me. Something maybe a little unusual. I spent most of my childhood in Oaxaca, Mexico. And starting when I was 4, that was where I lived. I lived in a 2-room adobe house with no running water. If you wanted to take a shower, you had to pull water up from a well, put it in a cauldron, let it sit in the sun all day, and then pour water over yourself with a gourd. Okay? So my childhood from 4 years on was taking care of cows. It was my job to bring 3 cows out to pasture, make sure they were safe, and bring them back in. And then home base in the States was Washington, D.C. So I was exposed to these 2 very different kinds of life. And money was one of the big differences. But in both places, people lived rich and amazing lives full of family and connections and disappointment and heartbreak and all of it. But in one, $100 or $200 was what I needed to get my Nintendo Entertainment System that I wanted so bad in 1986. But in Mexico, that could mean the difference between a family having a roof and a child living or dying because of the roof leaking. And that stayed with me. So I went on to college, studied mechanical engineering. My career took me to particle physics, particle colliders, infrared detectors, infrared sensors, and radar technology. And I lead research and development. In addition to that, over the course of my career, I like to say all the mistakes you can make, but there's probably some I didn't make financially. And I had to dig myself out. I went to financial advisors, and they were very happy to take my money and invest it and take their 1% AUM But my financial situation didn't get any better, because what I really needed was help with budgeting, with cash flow, with spending. And when a coworker told me about Jacob Fisker and Early Retirement Extreme and Mr. Money Mustache, I ate it up. And I did turn my life around. And in 4 years, I was debt-free, and I was on the track to FI, and now I'm Coast-FI. And I helped as many people as I could who were in the same situation. And I kept hearing over and over, I want you to be my financial advisor. And I had a terrible opinion of financial advisors based on my experience. But eventually, I figured out I needed to do this, but not like everyone else. I needed to do it in a way that was ethical and felt correct to me. So I started my business. I am a financial advisor. My business is Open Path Financial. And I serve the FI community as well as the neurodiverse community, of which I'm a member, ADHD, but neurodiversity encompasses autism spectrum disorder, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, sensory integration disorder, and others. And this group has some special challenges in general, but specifically with money. And with what I've learned about myself and helping others, it can change the direction of their lives too. I'm 80 years old and I've never been happier. When's the last time you heard that? Well, it's actually not as uncommon as you might think. Research studies on happiness over the lifetime have demonstrated again and again what's called a U-shaped curve. Happy in childhood, the lowest point of happiness in the 40s and 50s, and then rising steadily towards the end of life. And that's true across countries, across cultures. It's not true in every individual case. And that's why we're talking about this today, because I want you to be in that category and know what to do and how to do it. So what do we know about what makes later life good? The Harvard study of adult development started in 1938, studied Harvard men at first, and later some of the poorest men from Boston, later their wives, later their children, and their children's children. And they followed these people for their whole lives. And what they found was that wealth, fame, professional success did not correlate with happiness, with health, with longevity. What did correlate was relationships, specifically securely attached relationships, not just to partners, but to friends, to other family members, and even to a higher power. And secure attachment means you know you can count on that person. Even if they yell at you, even if you fight, you can count on them. And the opposite of that, loneliness, this study showed over and over, loneliness kills. It shortens life, it diminishes happiness, it diminishes health, it causes more brain deterioration and faster brain deterioration. And soberingly, more than 1 in 5 people of all ages in America are lonelier than they want to be. This is an example of someone doing something a little exceptional. 80-year-old Jane Dotchin takes the trek of 600 miles from Northumberland to Inverness, Scotland. And not only does she do this, she brings along her disabled Jack Russell Terrier and her 13-year-old pony, and she's been doing this since 1972. And I won't make you do the math, that's 54 years. So this is an example of how life in later life FI can be a little different than you might imagine. Now, the number one thing I hear when I talk to people about this, because as a rule, no one wants to talk about this, is they say, I'll figure it out later. And the best way I can think of to illustrate why you don't want to just figure it out later is by giving you a choice. Door number 1 or door number 2. In door number 1, you're lonely, isolated, neglected, maybe estranged, sedentary, unstimulated, mostly indoors. You're not involved, you're without purpose, you're in pain. But pain is sort of a given. I mean, you might be in pain now, but your pain is magnified by the lack of secure attached relationships. Your family may be far away. Your friends may be moved away to be closer to their family, or they may have passed away. Your home isn't as clean as you'd like it to be, and it may not be well maintained, and activities in your home are difficult and even unsafe. And I thought it was especially interesting that the highest daily call volume at assisted living centers is the day after Thanksgiving. Anyone know why that is? Exactly. That's when children return home and they see the state of affairs with their parents, and it's changed drastically in the time since they last saw them. So door number 2 is a little different. You're connected, you're seeing friends and family daily, you're involved in hobbies, groups, and community, you're physically active, mentally stimulated, you're learning, creating, problem solving, you're interacting not just with people your age, but people of various ages, and making long-lasting friendships, real relationships. You're needed, you're helping, you're contributing, you're sharing wisdom and experience. Your pain is diminished by secure attachment. You're cared for and monitored by loved ones. And one of the most important things, even if you can afford care, having someone to coordinate your care is critical. Someone who's with you daily or almost daily, who sees what you need and when you need it and what's not working and makes adjustments. Your home is designed for older bodies. It's accessible, clean, and safe. And things like housekeeping and home maintenance, these may sound minor, but if you've had a housekeeper for 20 years and you're 85 years old and that person leaves for whatever reason, that can be a life-changing experience and not for the better. And the project of finding a replacement, if you don't have a backup, can result in a home that's not only unclean, uncomfortable, maybe unhealthy and unsafe. And it's not for lack of money. So how do we rock later life FI? If those doors were sobering, you say, all right, what can I do? Number 1, relationships. Number 2, purpose. Number 3, location. That means living close, ideally very close, maybe even in the same house, in an accessory dwelling unit, an attached apartment, with people who know you, who care about you, who love you. It doesn't have to be family. There's shared housing, there's co-housing, people of different ages, people of the same ages, but who you're with matters. Transportation and healthcare. I call out transportation because so much of our country is designed for driving. And when a person loses their ability to drive, their world shrinks drastically. But if you live in a community where it's walkable, where e-bikes or e-trikes or golf carts are an option, if there's community transportation available, this is a place where you can choose to live while you still have the ability to move, and then that's not such a big hit. And something like automated driving robotaxis, we might, all of us, be using those services more. But for a person without the ability to drive, that could be positively life-changing. Active living, find a way to move your body that is fun and social, ideally outdoors, mentally stimulating, and involves some aspects of balance and strength training. Have a house that's designed for you and that's safe. Drive safely and do not fall. The impact of falls can't be overstated. So even little things like slippery tile or a 2-inch step up can mean the difference between an amazing life in later life FI and one that's shortened or not as nice as it could be. So this is a space that was designed by interior and exterior designers specifically for older bodies. And at first glance, I just say, wow, awesome house. But there's some specific things going on there. The flooring is all one level. There aren't level changes. There aren't mulch or pavers or stepping stones or step up. It's easy to clean. The house is one level. There's room for walkers and wheelchairs and people who aren't moving as steadily and carefully as they once did. So this is very possible, but only if you know that it's something that you want to do. You can prepare for this. Now, since we're in the financial independence community, I bet you want to know, well, what does it cost and how do I prepare for it. So these are some of the costs. This is a continuum from living in your own home all the way down to assisted living, nursing home, or a skilled nursing facility. Now, a skilled nursing facility is usually a short-term thing, so it would be a fraction of a year. But you can look up your own numbers for your zip code at the Genworth calculator, and the link is in the resources. But it gives you the prices in your zip code for each of these items. And what we have here, we're going to zoom in a second. This is a spreadsheet that I created that I use with my clients, and it has 3 different levels of care: daytime only, 24-hour in-home care, and long-term care. And on the left are the inputs. So you have a 46-year-old person, that's your age today. You have 4 years of in-home care, daytime only, 2 years of 24-hour in-home care, and 5 years of assisted living. The prices for those are at the bottom, $120, $240, $150. You've got an assumed real rate of return. You have general inflation and additional healthcare inflation, because healthcare grows at a rate that's higher than inflation. And then right at the bottom, if you have any money saved specifically for long-term care, you can put that in and you get the output. And at the bottom of each of these tables, you can see the total lump sum that you need today to prepare for each of these. Or if you don't have it today, the amount you need to save yearly or monthly to be ready when the time comes. And if you add all these up, you get $936K added to your FI number. The long-term care, that will likely take the place of your home at the time when that happens, so you would decrease other living expenses at that time. So this is a straight line simulation. We can do better than this. This is Projection Lab, and this is a model which takes into account all cash flows over time for the same example individual. You put in the money you have, the expenses you have, and then at the very bottom, they're grayed out at the moment. You have daytime only in-home care, 24-hour in-home care, and long-term care. And these are the numbers without those turned on. So you see a nicely increasing net worth, no problem. This is the probability of success using historical simulation. The green in the upper left of that circle is very, very successful. And the blue, which is a larger percentage, is still successful. So we're doing great. So now let's turn those on. If you look at the chart at the top right, you see that it rounds off a little. So we didn't crater it into the ground, but these expenses, which are significant, they had an effect. And in this plan, this person was well prepared for it. See, we're still at 100% success rate, which I might argue is too high. You might have worked too long. But the portion of that 100% that's very successful has shrunk. So we've had an impact by adding these in, and the part that's just successful is a larger portion. So this software is available. This is what I use with my clients, and by far it's the best thing that I've found, but I'm always open to better. But you can put in your own numbers in this software and use the spreadsheet provided before, which is linked here, to run your own numbers. Thank you. I hope you make later life FI as amazing as your FI life now.